All right. Hello again, and thank you for joining us today. This is our January large consultation for the ESEA title program and IDEA services that are offered through MPS. And we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. I am Dr. Maura Anderson, the ESEA non-public supervisor. From the Department of State and Federal Programs. I do have my team here with me. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves as well in just a moment. But first, I want to just always review the meeting norms. And again, we will use our time wisely, starting and ending on time, use cameras during the meeting to the extent possible. I understand some situations that you all may be in at this time may not allow for camera sharing, but if you're able to share your camera, please do. Mute your microphones unless permitted to speak. Treat each other with respect, assume good intent, listen attentively, document topics outside the agenda and table those for later discussion. Avoid side conversations, and then again, because we are expecting and requesting that you use your cameras, avoid use of cell phone. And at this time, I will allow my team members who are present to introduce themselves. And then, of course, I do have the list of our entire team, just so you know who is working with our third-party vendors to provide these services.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Liz Izzo. I'm the Title III-A coordinator, and I work with all three vendors.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Benedetto, and I am the ESCA coordinator, working mainly with Mainstream and Catapult.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Denise Christiansen, and I am the Title III Planning Assistant.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Hill. I'm the ASCA manager.
Thank you. And we do have some team members out for the schools who work with Learning Exchange. Mark Lawrence is not in. He may be joining us later. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and get started with the agenda items. First up, we do have Leighton Cooper and Beth Marie Kurtz. Are you all available to start your presentation? Oh, and as they're coming forward, I just want to let you know that our website is under construction. Thank you for the email notice to that. What I did was I made a zip folder for all of the handouts pertaining to this meeting. And then once our website is functional, we will provide you with that new link. And included in that zip folder with the files, I do have each of the presentations from our guest presenters today. So first up is Beth Marie and Leighton Cooper from 21st Century Learning Grant.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is
Morning.
well and staying warm this morning. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. My name is Beth Kurtz, and I work with Milwaukee Public Schools with our Recreation Department as part of our 21st Century Community Learning Centers and Safe Place After School team. I will be here with you. My supervisor, Leighton Cooper, our recreation coordinator, has a prior commitment. So I'll be sharing information with everyone this morning about our opportunities to participate in our 21st Century Community Learning Center programs. And Dr. Anderson, do you have the slide or would you like me to present my slides?
Let's see. I did allow you to share. Can you see if you can share?
I sure can. It says sharing is not turned on, but I've sent
Okay,
a
and then I
request.
just made you available to do so. There you go.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's see. Can everyone see my screen? Does everyone see some slides? Sorry, it's not in the presentation layout here, but hopefully everyone can still see the slides.
We can see them.
Excellent. Just some background information for those of you who may not be as familiar with the 21st Century Community Learning Center program. The Nita M. Lowy 21st Century Community Learning Center program is part part of Title IV, Part B of the ESEA, or Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which requires timely and meaningful consultation take place between the LEA, or local education agency, in this case, Milwaukee Public Schools, community-based organizations, or consortium of schools that are in the private school consortium or area, and consulting with you as school leaders, and how our programs can provide equitable and effective program services for private school or non-public school students. The consultation involves discussions just like this between our CLC folks and all of you to ensure that your students know that they have access to these programs. And consultation, of course, between our CLC subgrantees. We call them our lead agency partners. They help us do this work, and we certainly could not do it without them, and our private school partners. We also must consult with all private schools located within our service boundaries, and that includes all of you, including independent schools and faith-based schools. To confirm that you have received this information, the Department of Public Instruction requires us as the LEA to provide documentation that we have provided you, our non-public school partners and schools, with this information. And that evidence takes the shape of what the DPI calls a CLC, private school affirmation form. This is different from the private school affirmation form that some of you may also be familiar with. This is the CLC private school affirmation form. So just note that there's a little bit of a difference, and you'll see on that form in the upper left-hand corner, it should say CLC on it. If you have not already completed this form and submitted it for the year, we'll ask for you to please take a moment and fill this out, and submit it to our clerical team member, Wendy Herndon, at the email address listed below. Again, as Dr. Anderson pointed out, you'll have access to these slides as well as the link here. I will drop a copy of the link in our chat as well to make that easier for everyone to access. But all you need to do is check the box here to say, yes, we agree that the LEA provided time and an opportunity to participate, for our students to participate in the programs. You would fill in your name, the name of your school, and your name here under private school representative, and then your signature here and the date, and then you would leave this section down here blank. That's for our team to fill out, our supervisor, Leighton Cooper, for his signature. So that's the form, and here is just a little bit about our Community Learning Center programs. So what is a CLC, or 21st Century Community Learning Center program? This is a federal grant which was created to provide academic enrichment opportunities during non-school hours for children, especially students who attend high poverty and low performing schools. The grant assists students in meeting challenging academic standards, provides students with academic enrichment, offers students with a wide array of enrichment activities, including social emotional opportunities, arts programming, and leadership opportunities. And these programs offer educational services for families that are of participating children. CLCs are required to provide at least 4 family engagement activities during the course of the school year. And if you have any questions or would like to learn more about the CLC grants and what that history is, there's a wonderful video, which I definitely recommend, and that's available on the DPI CLC website. Here in our Milwaukee area, in MPS, we have 36 21st Century Community Learning Center programs, which are located across the city. And you can visit our MPS CLC webpage on our recreational webpage for those CLC program locations. We have served in the previous school year 4,497 unduplicated or different students throughout the 24-25 school year. This year, we have the pleasure of working with 5 different community-based partners: America Scores, Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Milwaukee, Journey House, Strive 365, who was a new partner to our CLC program family this year, and Silver Spring Neighborhood Center. And again, and I'll share this with everyone, a link to our MPS our Milwaukee Recreation before and after school programs website for more information. And again, I will share this page with everyone here. Oh, here we go. And I'll drop this into the chat so everyone can see. Is everyone able to see my presentation so far? I saw it's good. Okay, I'm just going to drop the link to our sheet in the chat.
It's not,
It's not showing up.
no, I'm only seeing one screen that
Okay,
since you've been talking, it's just been title for
it
part
hasn't
B, and
been.
then
Oh,
it
really?
has, it's only one on my side, it's only been one screen where it says 21st Century Community Learning
Okay.
Centers, and that's
All
it.
right. Okay, I'm going to share it again. Can everyone see this? I'm just pulling over a list of our CLC program locations. Can everyone see that now?
I can see the locations.
You can? Okay,
Yes.
great. You'll find this link on our from our recreation website. Here you'll find a list of all of our community learning center program locations, as well as our safe places. And then below you'll see a link to our childcare camps. That's a separate program from our CLCs. But that information is there. And then again to our recreation website. On our before, you'll find a list and more information of about our before and after school programs, including a link to our CLC webpage, where you can find more information, a copy of the blank registration forms and our evaluation reports. So more information here, and we encourage you to check that out. So just sharing a little bit more information then about how children's needs are identified to participate in our community learning center programs. We take a comprehensive school and community data review. We look at school improvement plans. We look at school climate surveys, youth risk behavior assessments, city poverty data. We look at a wide range of factors when determining the needs. And each individual CLC program determines its school-based and community-based needs. We also look to our program partners to conduct routine community needs assessments using tools such as focus groups, interviews, surveys, one-on-one conversations to determine what are the specific needs of the students at their CLC program. And some examples of the types of services and programs that we offer include academic enrichment, programs and activities such as lit art and comic book club, STEM, literacy, poetry, math hoops for math enrichment, varying youth development activities through partners such as the Boys and Girl Scouts, the Milwaukee Repertory Theater, various character and leadership programming. We encourage our sites to offer social emotional activities. We have programs that we've offered called Lions Quest, which is a service learning and social emotional enrichment curriculum, also Positive Action and Second Step, and recreation activities such as Spark physical activity and movement curriculum, gameplay activities such as martial arts, yoga, and collaborations with local community partners such as Coleswell Theater. The Department of Public Instruction does provide guidance and a list in its most recent guidelines, and you can certainly check out the allowable activities, which are listed here in the application. And our programs are evaluated and monitored throughout the school year to ensure that here's the list in the appendices you'll see there that they're offering a wide variety of the allowable activities per our grant application requirements. And throughout the school year, our recreation coordinators, our recreation supervisors regularly monitor the program, but the Department of Public Instruction also, as a requirement of the federal grant, is required to monitor each CLC program formally at least one time during its 5-year grant cycle. And our grant team, our CLC recreation team rather, does go out regularly, conducting at least quarterly, oftentimes monthly, check-in visits and monitoring assessments. We also invite our principals at our schools and our lead agency partners to conduct quarterly monitoring observations. And the Department of Public Instruction requires each CLC grantee to complete an annual self-assessment through a pre-approved tool, such as the Youth Program Quality Assessment or YPQA, or WASIP, the Wisconsin After School Continuous Program Improvement Tool. And those assessment results must be reported out annually as part of their annual yearly progress report. And as I mentioned earlier, the CLC, as part of our internal district evaluation monitoring process, we do partner with an external evaluator through the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the Wisconsin Education Research Team, WCER, and that team compiles and creates an evaluation report, which we publish on our CLC website. And again, our most recent evaluation report from the 23-24 school year, which was completed in May of 25. And WCR is in the process of completing our 24-25 report, which will be available soon. And finally, services are for private schools. Per federal grant requirements, MPS 21st Century Community Learning Centers are open to all communities, all students throughout our community, including students attending non-public and private schools. Students are not required to attend the day school of the CLC program in order to participate in the after-school program. So if your students are interested and you don't have an after-school program that they can participate in, or if you find that there is a CLC program that's perhaps nearer to where they live, you can certainly encourage them, and we welcome them to consider participating in exploring our CLC after-school programs. That's the last question. I think that's the last piece of information that I have to share. Does anyone have any questions?
Beth, I just want to have you make a clarification. I did hear you said at the top of your presentation, but these services, the affirmation completion form, all of that is for those non-public schools that reside within the Milwaukee Public District boundaries, correct?
Yes, the students, I mean, I'm going to pull up my slide here one more time here.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So we need to consult with everyone within our grantee public grantees program service boundaries. The CLC programs are open and available to anyone. That's part of
okay.
yes. And so if you don't live within the Milwaukee Public Schools boundaries, you're still open. It's a federal program and can be open and available to anyone. But as part of the requirement for the Title IV Part B, we must consult with all of the private schools that fall within our program service boundaries.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And as Beth reminded, this presentation with all of the links is in the handout folder. The affirmation needs to be submitted directly to Beth Marie Kurtz. I'm not sure if I put the updated affirmation, Beth, in that folder, but I will send it out with the follow-up information. So
Sounds
everyone will
wonderful.
have it, and then just please send it directly to Beth Marie. Our offices are not conjoined, so we'll make sure you get those, Beth.
And I'll drop in my email address in the chat here. And
Thank you so much.
sure, no problem. And I'll also drop in a copy of the form, a PDF link to the form as well, Dr. Anderson.
Perfect, because I know you have the links inside the presentation, but I did not add that separate PDF form. So that'll be a great help. Thank you, Beth.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your support. Thank you for the work that you do.
Awesome. Any other questions for Beth Marie, or any questions regarding the 21st Century Learning Programs? Okay, then. we will then have Dr. Burr come forward for the next portion of our meeting.
Okay.
And as Dr. Burr is coming on, if you all can please just in the chat, give us your first and last name and your school assignment and the role that you're in at that school. If you could just start populating the chat with that information. I apologize, I didn't ask that at the top of the meeting.
Hi,
Okay, I'm sorry, Dr. Burr, go ahead.
Beth Marie, can you please stop sharing?
Of course. I didn't think I was. I'm so sorry.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, there I am. And I'm going to share mine, and somebody else is sharing. So I'm going to share my presentation.
Okay,
Is my presentation
you're up. We can see it, Dr. Burr.
excellent? I can't see me. There. Now can you see it still? Okay, let me move
We can
this.
see you.
So I am going to talk about, I'm Joanne Boer, and I am the Specialized Services Supervisor. So I am going to talk about three things today. I'm going to talk about evaluations for special education. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about evaluations and how that fits into the special needs scholarship program. And then I'm going to move into the services that are offered for parentally placed private school students for this school year. And I will stop after each section to see if there are any questions. There we go. So I'm going to start talking about Child Find. And MPS is the local education agency, or LEA, for children that are attending private schools within the city of Milwaukee. And as the LEA, it's our responsibility to locate and evaluate any student who may be eligible for special education services. So if any of you have a student who you believe is a child with special education needs, please submit a special education referral form to Child Find. And I have the address on this slide, and the referral form should be in your, is it a zip drive? Dr. Anderson, a zip drive? Yes, I see you're nodding yes. Okay.
Zip, yes, a folder, a zip folder. So everything is
Folder.
inside there. Yes.
So you'll have a copy, a blank copy of the special education referral. One important piece of information is if the student moves or the contact information has changed, please notify the Child Find office so we're able to successfully locate all the students for the evaluation. Now, if the student has not been identified previously to have a special education need or disability, the referral will go through the initial evaluation process. And we have teams of psychologists, program support teachers, speech pathologists, etc., that conduct the evaluation team. It's a centralized team. Now, for re-evaluations, if a student has previously been found to have a special education disability, am I still, yes, sorry. Sorry, something's not right here, for mine. The evaluation is sent to a school to be completed. It's usually the school closest to the child's home or one near the child's home. Or if the child lives out of the district, it's the school closest to the private school that the student is attending. Any questions about initial evaluations or re-evaluations? And I can't see the chat. Any questions?
I don't have any questions in the chat. I do have the chat on
Okay,
my side only, but if something comes up, I'll let you know, Dr. Moore.
thank you. Then I wanted to spend some time talking about the Special Needs Scholarship Program. So IDEA, the requirements for privately placed special education students require that a reevaluation is completed every 3 years from the last reevaluation date. But if the parents and the IEP team agree that the child continues to be a child with a disability, the reevaluation, the reevaluation can be waived. And one thing that's important to note is the Special Needs Scholarship Program does not require that the public school develop an IEP following a reevaluation. So just determination of eligibility for special education will be completed. Now, for the Special Needs Scholarship Program, according to DPI, and this was all taken from, oh, sorry, did I quit sharing?
You're fine, Dr. Boer. As individuals are putting their information in the chat, you might see a notice of that, but your screen is still sharing. We're on the Special Needs Scholarship Program slide.
Thank you. It quit sharing for me, but that's okay. In order to be eligible for the Special Needs Scholarship Program, a student needs to meet one of the following to be eligible. The student has to have an IEP or service plan that's being implemented as of the date the application is received by DPI. Or, and this one's a little tricky, the student has an IEP or service plan that was developed no earlier than September 15th of 2022, and the student has not had a more recent reevaluation since that plan was developed to determine that the student no longer has a disability. So we're going to dive in a little bit more on the second bullet point. So in the FAQ from DPI, it means that they use September 15th as the date for each year. And so it just means that the student has to have a reevaluation, not an IEP, 3 years prior.
Do have a question about reevaluation in the chat.
Can we wait until I'm almost done?
You're
with
at the
this?
end.
This is going to
Okay.
help.
All right, perfect.
So if a student transfers in and the student is new to the scholarship program, so they've transferred from a non-special needs school, they have to check that the student has had an annual IEP. And we'll see if that is clear. And if a student is transferring between, the special needs scholarship program to another school, again, they have to, the IEP reevaluation doesn't mean annual IEP. It just means an IEP evaluation has had to happen or it was waived. Now, It seems like I might have, oh, MPS frequently receives requests to develop an annual IEP or complete a 3-year reevaluation with an IEP, sometimes on an annual basis. And again, the scholarship program does not require an annual IEP. They require an IEP evaluation in order to qualify for the special needs scholarship program. I think I may have questions about the special needs scholarship program. Is there one in the chat?
I know the question in the chat is about the timing of the reevaluation referral. You want me to
Oh,
ask that now, or you want me to wait till
yes,
you finish
please.
this section?
Yes, please.
Okay, so it's asking, once a reevaluation referral is submitted, how long does the district have to complete it?
90 days.
90 days. Okay, thank you.
Yes, 90 days. Any other questions? And then the last part, I wanted to talk about services, the equitable services.
One other question just popped
Yes,
in, Joanne, and it's asking here for clarification. A waiver counts for the same as a reevaluation?
correct,
Okay.
correct, because, and that's right out of DPI special needs scholarship program documentation. A waiver counts as a conducted reevaluation. So the third part I wanted to talk about are the equitable participation in special education services. So DPI, as well as IDEA, says that every district has an obligation to spend a proportionate share or an equitable share of federal monies that is given to the district for implementation of services, of special education services. And this year, I'm sorry, our proportionate share is $1,384,218.46, down to the penny. So that is what we will spend this year on services to private schools. So we had a consultation, a deep dive into the consultation for services last, it was either May or June. And in that consultation, we discussed the type of services, whether they be direct special education services or indirect services, such as consultation, professional development, materials, equipment, and by when and whom the services, where and when and how the services will be delivered. It's important, It's important to know that parentally placed private school students do not have an individual right to receive some or all of the special education and related services they would if they were enrolled in a public school. And so for this school year, what was decided following the consultation services is that we would provide direct services to students who are identified as having a primary specific learning disability in grades 3 through grade 6, primary disability of significant developmental delay, K4 through age 9, and speech and language impairment, students that have a primary disability in K4, K5, and through their 7th birthday or their end of their IEP, whichever comes first. And all services will be provided at the students' private schools, and they will be provided by appropriately licensed staff. And that's what I have for today. Are there any questions about the services? No questions?
Just one other question came up, and it's circling back to that evaluation process.
Yes.
And it's asking, is the 90 days from the date the district receives the referral or from when the district makes contact with the parent? So when does that time clock start on
When
the
we
evaluation form?
when we receive the referral.
Okay.
Joanne, can you introduce me so the group
Yes,
knows?
this is Brian Banasic, I can't remember your new title.
I'm
Community
a
manager?
special services community manager.
Yes.
Many of the issues we have is parents, the schools don't inform, or I don't know how you're communicating to the parent, that we can't start anything until the parent gives us consent.
Yes.
So I personally have three of these that are sitting in my to-do list that came in September, and one that came in last July, and I'm not able to get a hold of a parent. So I'm quite sure the school's freaking out. Why isn't this done yet? It is imperative that the schools communicate to the families. And in fact, really what should be happening is you guys should be telling the family to communicate with us to communicate with the family because we have to get consent from them. As Joanne said, we're the LEA. We communicate with the family as to whether or not a reeval is required. And in many cases, the student doesn't require a reeval and we could waive it. So it's a matter of having that conversation. The other thing is that in the guide, and I want to direct you to that DPI guide that Joanne referred to, what makes the most sense to expedite or expedite this process is if the private school sends the email that is attached in the DPI guide, you're asking if the student is still eligible for services. The re-eval request should come from the parent, not the private school. The private school should be asking us, is the student eligible for services? And I'm telling you, look at the DPI guide. It's all in there. There is an email drafted in the DPI guide that you should be sending to the private schools or to the public schools, to us, the LEA, asking, is this student still eligible for services? We would respond, yes, they are. As far as re-evals go, if you inform the parent that, hey, your child's due for a reeval, why don't you call MPS and check on that and have the conversation? Then we have that conversation about, is it required or can it be waived? That is the big thing that we need to get going, is the conversation of, is it required or can it be waived, and move through. When would an example of one that's required? Let's say the kid is speech only and you at the school and mom are seeing attention, you're seeing behavior, we're seeing something else. That's a child find issue that we need to look at. But if a child is already identified with autism and we're seeing autism-like behaviors and trouble with math and everything there, that's all under autism. There's no need to do a reeval at that point. And that's where we need to really streamline the requests we're getting, because we're getting hundreds of requests for kids that had a reeval done last year. And then there's the whole parent communication thing. So what we really wanted to do is kind of streamline this according to the DPI guidance. So any questions you have about what I just said, go back and look at the DPI guidance, and then you can follow up with us for clarification.
And so just to be clear, first of all, Brian, welcome and thank you for joining us for this meeting. We do have ongoing consultation with the non-public schools in the large consultation format 3 times per year. So we just met last September. We're meeting today. We will also meet again in May to help set up for next school year. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with our ongoing consultation process, but that's where we are. These chat questions will be also formally answered. I have access to the chat. I do want to bring some of this forward now for just a verbal response, but then again, I will work with Dr. Boer in your office to get them these questions answered in print as well. And we'll get that
Yes.
back to them within a week of this meeting. But the questions that are coming up is one specifically, can we have a link placed in the chat here or provided so that I can share after this meeting with the follow-up email to the DPI SPED guidance that you're referring? That will help
Yes,
them.
I will do that.
Okay. And then
Are you talking about the frequently asked questions? Is that what people would like?
that's what
I
Brian
will,
was referring to.
yep, I referred to that too, yes.
Okay, so we have the link coming out for the non-public school leaders. Also, we're asking or receiving questions, who should actually be making the contact? I know you said the parents should be contacting you all, but are you all contacting them at all? How many contact attempts are made by this office, before it's considered unable to be moved forward?
I'll answer that, okay, Joanne?
Yeah,
The way it works is there's 5 of us that are managers, and we split up and take different parts of the district. I I speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody, but I've made in many cases 8, 9, 10 attempts, including emails. So that's another thing. If the private school would include parent emails, that helps. That's another avenue. I think the message needs to be clear to the parent that it is the public school. We are the LEA. We are the ones doing it. I think a lot of times in the climate and culture that we live in right now, parents are very leery of answering the phone when they see a public school calling and their child goes to a private school. Why are they calling me? What are they trying to do? This is especially true with families that require translators, right? So the whole world that we live in when certain fake police are going after families, I can understand why they don't want to talk to us. They don't want to talk to anybody they don't know. So it's super important that the private school directs the family to initiate the contact and say, no, this is the person that works for Milwaukee Public Schools. They're going to help you determine whether or not a reeval is required. That's it. And then I don't give up. Like I said, I've got some that have been in the pipe since September. I would rather get a hold of the family and do what's right for the child than just put it in the, oh, we can't get a hold of them list and then forget it. And I'm quite sure a lot of my cohorts do the same thing. It's just trying to get a hold of families, but it's streamlining, doing the ones we need to do and not being overwhelmed with ones we don't need to do.
Thank you for that, Brian. And so we're just making sure we'll provide your email address. Actually, if you can put it in the chat, I'll copy it to everyone. And then they just need to know who to have the parents contact. So when we get these questions out, you can kind of make it clear, and they'll go back to that link for the frequently asked questions as well. I'm believing that the contact is in as part of that, but they just want to make sure that they're getting the correct information to parents so that they're contacting the right people. And then we know that, something should be happening on our end, as the LEA to get those students identified as quickly as possible. So I tried my best to connect and share the questions that have come out. If there's anything else, I will allow just a brief share of unmuting, but still make sure that the question is in our chat so we can get you written responses. Is there anything that I missed from the chat that you need answers to? Okay, thank you all so very much. And then Brian, as
I'll,
soon as, oh, go ahead, go
I'll
ahead.
send you the link shortly, as soon as this is
Okay.
done.
That will be fine. And if we can get it into the chat here, perfect. If not, remember we do within the week of this meeting, we will be sending back answers to these questions. So I'll get this out to all of the relevant parties. We'll get the information written down and get it back to them for timely response and services.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you all. I appreciate it. Okay, I will go back to our presentation then. And then if you can just give me a thumbs up if you see the getting here slide, and we're going on now to final allocations. Are you all able to see the presentation again? Perfect. All right, Joe, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. Just a quick reminder, all final allocations were provided to schools and vendors, I believe, back, I think we got it late October to everyone into November. Please work with your service provider to spend down those allocations. And remember, one of the things that we've shared with the vendors is to not work in the planning stage the whole for the most part of the year. Is we really want to see some actions taken. So working with your vendors to spend those allocations down as quickly as possible so those services can be provided to students and staff at your locations. Any questions about final allocations at this time?
Okay, and I don't see anything coming into the chat, Joe. But
Yeah.
again, remember, I know you all may not be able to see the chat, but I have all of the information that we're going to get back to you. If it's something, even if it comes out up after we start another topic, it is still okay to put that question in the chat. We just want to make sure you have within your hands written responses to these questions so that you can refer back to them.
Yeah, just let me just also clarify
Mm-hmm.
the final allocations are based on the carryover amount. So that is the last two bullets are not part of this anymore. So you have the final allocations that and also has the final carryovers on it, and we should be good to go.
Thank you for that clarification, Joe. I
Yep.
apologize that I did not update that slide. We were uh, great and able to get those allocations out much earlier this year. So thanks, Joe. Any questions? Okay, then we're going to move on. As Beth Marie alluded to earlier in her presentation, we also have our affirmation of consultation, which is due no later than 4 p.m. on March 5th. For private schools outside of our district boundaries, you should be completing the form and submitting it to your local LEA. The forms that we received, excuse me, should be coming from those private schools within the district boundaries. Once you complete the form and submit it to your local LEA, we want to make sure that you select yes to that Title 1A, even if you don't want to take part in your LEA's Title 1 program. And like I said, I will attach a blank affirmation that you can use directly with your LEA. But just remember to also copy the Title I office to that email to your LEA. So that way we at least know that you are, your school is interested in receiving title services through through MPS for the upcoming FY27 school year. So again, that deadline is no later than 4 p.m. I am aware that those schools that are outside of our district, your timeline is sometimes, most times, different from ours. But if you can get this going with your district as soon as possible, as long as we see that copied message to the Title One inbox, at least we will know that you are interested in taking part in services through MPS. Any questions about the affirmation?
Yes, I turned mine in. How can I get a confirmation that someone received it?
Okay, confirmations will be coming from either the Title I inbox itself or from Michael Betts. So if you have not received a confirmation, we will look into that and make sure you get one. And then I also will be sending out a list of missing affirmations with the follow-up email from this meeting. So we're under 20 or so, which is good for this time of year. And again, we do have a little more time, but we'll make sure, Ms. Dominique, you get your confirmation. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on. Let me see. Just want to make sure. Yes. Okay, so for Title Instructional Services, we've had some concerns with scheduling. We know that this time of the year, we usually do get to see where some of the challenges are. Thank you again in advance for working with your assigned service providers. We want to make sure that we reach as many students as possible. And whether it's a situation of staffing to accommodate, whether it's actual scheduling of the students' scheduled day, we want to just take a moment here just to say, uh, are there any suggestions that you as school leaders have or have seen that works when we're dealing with some of these scheduling concerns? So I'm going to open the floor. Just unmute before you speak. Let us know who you are, what school you're from. And then we're just looking for suggestions of things that maybe have worked um, concerning some of these scheduling challenges. Because again, the goal is to provide timely and equitable services to as many students as possible. Do I have anyone to share? Some of the scheduling concerns that we've seen is the more so with high schoolers that have outside obligations or doing additional extended activities beyond the school day. Um, just as far as the number of students, some of the service rooms that are available are sometimes smaller than we would desire, but we know that we are using the space that you're able to provide us, and we're grateful for that. But are there any challenges, like if you had a concern that you had and you found a way to work it out and you're willing to share that with the group? Anything? Okay, well, if something comes up or if you want to put an example in the chat, I can certainly add that to the chat responses that we give back. But just keep in mind that we're doing all that we can. Again, the goal is to provide that timely service, and we want to reach as many students as possible. Moving on to Title I instruction, exit criteria. Again, in our ongoing consultation, we consistently refer to the appropriate exit for students receiving title services. It is not a unilateral decision by the vendor providing the service, nor the school leaders where the services are occurring. It is rather a collaborative and comprehensive discussion involving, at minimum, the title teacher, the classroom teacher and or principal, and any other school personnel that knows the child, works closely with the child. And we also uh, remind that the parents have to sign the students in to receive these services. So if there's a conversation regarding exiting from the service, especially if it's a premature exit, then please work with your vendors to include the parents in that discussion as well. Those criteria include students scoring on or above current grade level norms for 2 consecutive progress monitoring sessions or 2 consecutive nationally normed standardized testing sessions. And again, both the Title I teacher and classroom teacher agree that the child can be dismissed from the program based on a variety of more frequently used progress monitoring measures as well. Again, the goal is to get the students the services that they need so that they can become more successful with their academic progress and then move forward in their regular schooling. So, as much as possible, continue those discussions and monitoring, but also keep mind for the early signs of regression. Those signs should be monitored and definitely preventative measures should be taken into consideration and applied. The only, if you will, return to my statement of unilateral decision regarding exiting a program is when there's excessive absenteeism. And we define that as 15 days or more per semester due to truancy, continued suspension, expulsion. And in that case, we want you to move those students out and replace them immediately from someone on the eligibility list who is in high need of service. Any questions about that? Also, keeping in mind when that happens, we do want to make sure that that post-test is taken um, because we do need those pre and post-test scores. Any questions? Okay, moving on for the Title IV allocation reminders. For Title IV, once again, we've divided the allocation into percentages. So for WRE, well-rounded education and safe and healthy students, equally 45% of your total allocation has been allotted for those services. And then effective use of technology has the remaining 10%. Allocation of services from Title IV must be used to enhance already existing school programs and cannot supplant. This means the school programming should have existed prior to accessing the Title IV allocation of service and will be sustained in the absence of the allocation of service. And so make sure to provide all of the details for each request in order for us to determine allowability. And these priorities still remain for Title IV. So just because we've divided the allocation and assigned percentages for the spend down per DPI, you are still required to spend at least 20% of your entire allocation for Title IV on well-rounded education activities, and then spend at least 20% of the total allocation toward improving school conditions for learning to ensure safe and healthy students. That last area for the Title IV allocation, the effective use of technology to improve academic achievement and digital literacy, there is a 15% cap on technology infrastructure, which includes the devices, equipment, software applications, platforms, digital instructional resources, and other one-time information technology purchases. These purchases cannot be more than 15% of whatever amount is spent under the IT objective. So for the technology infrastructure, that is limited to staff devices or district tools that students do not directly interact with. Are there any questions so far about effective use of technology? Okay, at minimum, we need to have one technology PD scheduled through the services provided by your vendor. If it becomes something that is subcontracted out, that is fine. We just need every school to have at least one PD scheduled for the use of your staff, training your staff. And then once that is scheduled, the remaining allocation under the effective use of technology category may be used for any overages in the well-rounded and or safe and healthy categories. So as long as you have that PD, then if you go over in those other areas for Title IV allocations, that technology can be accessed to cover the overages. Any questions? The last piece about
Dr.
the,
Anderson, can I just confirm
oh,
the
go
way you
ahead,
said
Cheryl.
it? I just want to make sure for you said for the PD, you mentioned like the whole staff, but it doesn't have to be for the whole staff. The technology PD is just for a technology PD. It could be for a small group or it could be for one
Oh,
person.
absolutely.
Okay, just making
Absolutely.
sure. Okay, just
No,
making
I'm
sure.
glad you
Thank
did,
you.
Cheryl. Yeah, no, any aspect of the staff needs that are presented in the needs assessment, Cheryl. So yes, it could definitely be small group. Hmm.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Any other questions about that? Okay, and so in order to split Title IV, well-rounded and safe and healthy allocations, and I know this is something that you work through with vendors, but we just want to make sure that you also understand when you make this request, the vendors are under the understanding and knowledge that even though we are braiding funds, if you will, or you splitting the funds across the service, each requirement must still meet the expectations of that allocation. So if you want to share the allocations or split the allocations, that event or that PD or whatever the activity is must meet both requirements. We cannot just split the allocation because one is running low. The only category that may cover overages is the effective use of technology. Any questions about that? So those allowable guidelines, which again are in the folder that I sent, those allowable guidelines must be met for each title in order to use the allocation. Okay. Moving on, for Title IV allocation reminders still, the student device for well-rounded, you may purchase devices under the WRE category for students, but we will need to make sure you provide the vendors with the description for use as well as the connection to a well-rounded education. And so all of that information should be provided to us via the pre-approval request. For non-allowable expenditures under Title IV, those remain food and pupil transportation. For allowable expenditures, whether it's safe and healthy or well-rounded, travel costs for PD, we do have updated travel guidelines. And that I say handout, it's in that zip folder that I created for you. Concerning per diem and mileage and things like that, you work directly with your vendor on that, but I did provide the guidelines for you. Registration for PD is allowable under Title IV, and then as well as stipends for allowable Title IV PD, and that is the instructional staff who is eligible for stipends, the instructional staff, and that may again be allowed under Title IV. Any questions about that? Okay. And then wrapping up with the Title IV allocation reminders, school-wide supplemental licenses, basic professional memberships, whatever the case, per ESSA, and we have the set identified there, the public agency needs to maintain control of the supplemental subscription license membership to ensure that it is only used for title purposes. Supplemental site license needs to have the name of the public agency and not the public school. Submit a copy of the site supplemental license when submitting the invoice. These supplemental materials, license membership subscriptions must be under the control of the LEA at all times. And I know when we have our ongoing consultations, especially in that September consultation, we make it very clear the service is arranged and provided through the vendors, not the school. This is why we're saying this billing for licenses, uh, memberships, whatever the case may be, it has to be to the vendor. They are responsible for the service arranging and providing. Any questions about that? Okay. So, again, we want to just, as early, and if you don't have anything to share, I understand, but again, the time that we have together, we want to use it to the best of our ability to allow for the exchange of ideas and understanding. Again, all with the purpose of making sure we have timely services to our constituents at our various school communities. And so what we're asking now is, what are some previously approved suggestions to spend down allocations for all titles, 1, 2, 3, and 4? When you provide a suggestion, again, indicate your name, your school, and which funding source you're referring to. And for those vendors who are observing the consultation and also my coordinators, if we do have feedback here, please keep note in case we have to refer back to it. But again, we just want to see what are some things that, may be working well, um, ideas that you may have to share. And we do want to hear from you, because we want this to be an interactive, collaborative consultation. I'm sure some of you have something you can share, and I don't want to be on the bad Santa list for the upcoming holiday by calling someone out. But let me see. What's the service? How about Milwaukee Lutheran? Is Milwaukee Lutheran on? Hi,
Yeah,
Katie.
I'm here.
Hey,
How are
Katie,
you?
do you mind sharing something with us? Something that has worked well? Any suggestions you have? I know sometimes we have to work through some challenges and things like that for all of our schools, but anything you want to share as far as the services at Milwaukee Lutheran?
This year we've been able to bring in more Title I teachers to help really spend down our Title I allocations.
Okay. Well, that's right on target. Like we say, we want to reach as many students as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? We know sometimes teachers may be difficult to get by as well. What about the one-to-one tutoring? Do we have any schools doing the one-to-one tutoring? Anyone who can speak to the one-to-one tutoring before or after school? Okay. Well, again, if something comes up, you can pop a suggestion in the chat. Um, just know that we want to make sure that we're being creative in the use of these allocations so that we can maximize the amount of spend down when and where we can. Okay, we'll move on. How to participate in allowable title activities without obligating funds. Obviously, the best way to do that is by submitting the pre-approval. We know that that request has a 30-day process, so we must receive that request 30 days prior to the event. Obviously, working through the needs assessment, which is another collaborative process with your assigned vendors. Those are due July 1st of every year. And then also through the title service providers, pre-approved professional development and family engagement catalogs. In the zip folder that I sent you, I did give you another copy of those so you can have them readily handy because again, we want to maximize that spend down for the remainder of this year. Any questions about spend down, ways to receive approvals for spend down? I do have that ESEA approved pre-approvals list that the vendors are working on. I did not have that on the previous slide, but you will need to work directly with the vendors concerning items on that list, but that is a fourth way. Okay, moving on to consultation. Timely and meaningful consultation during the design and development of the program. This actually starts in May when we issue the preliminary allocations for the upcoming school year. By meaningful, we're focusing on the services needed based on the school's needs that are identified in that needs assessment. Um, whether there's requests for topics of consultation prior to every meeting, I do give you all a chance to, add topics to our meeting agenda. Also, working again with the vendors for those monthly meetings. And that's going to come up in the next slide. Required topics are listed on the affirmation form. So when you sign that affirmation out every year, those requested and required topics for consultation are listed right on the affirmation form. And then again, vendors provide one-to-one consultations specific to each building's needs. Ongoing means continues throughout the implementation. As I explained to Brian, who's a newcomer to our meeting, we meet for the large consultation 3 times per year. And then we also have those smaller consultation meetings, October, November, and March. So just with your school group or members of your school group, we have 6 ongoing consultations every year. And that's above and beyond the consultation with so that's what I just explained, the large consultation meetings, the small consultation meetings, and then also site visits. Our team tries our best to meet with the principal or the school leader to let you know we're in your building, obviously without interrupting what's happening in your building or disrupting your instructional services. But we do use those site visits as an additional opportunity to consult, to learn what's going on in your buildings and what's working well, and if there are any needs for support. Then consultation directly with the service provider, again, which should be collaborative, whether it's the face-to-face meetings or virtual meetings, those monthly meetings, weekly meetings based on your need. Vendor schools should be discussing instruction, pre-approval status, orders, allocation questions, planning for professional development and or coaching, Title III services for those of you who've opted into those services, and any other service that the school potentially is interested in for the upcoming weeks or months. Also discussion of planning and programming throughout the school year, not just when the NAs are due. We understand everything that you need for your building is not going to be on that NA. So we have that monthly touch, if you will, with your vendors directly to have those collaborative conversations about your needs. Also asking questions and bringing ideas forward to your vendor. And we have the documentation of consultation on that agenda form. We also carry over the consultation required topics to your monthly agenda form. So there are 2 places where you can find the required topics for equitable participation. And these are requirements for DPI monitoring of the services that we provide. Any questions about the myriad of ways that we offer ongoing consultation? Are there any concerns that you'd like to share? Okay, then we'll keep moving. For the inventory ADF process, if a school is not in need of materials or the materials outdated or broken, please work with the vendors to have it removed from your school. The ADF is filled out by the vendor and signed by the school administrator prior to submitting it to our office. We understand your schedules are busy. We did have a couple of situations where it was very difficult to get the principal's signature. Please, if the vendors are asking for that to complete the process, work with them to make sure you are available to sign. We want to make sure you are aware of what's coming in and removed from your building because, again, these are MPS materials and we must keep track of them. The vendor should have control over the inventory at all times. The ADF is reviewed by our office and then approved. The vendor can then remove the items from the school and return it back to the vendor's storage. School leaders and school staff are not able to remove items from the school. Any movement of items must occur through your vendor. The vendor updates the inventory and reflects this change for our office. And as we come to the site visits and things like that, we will know what is present for your use. So again, please work with the vendors for that purpose. If the materials are reusable and there is a need at one of the non-public schools, vendors can fill that out an ADF to move the material accordingly, so that the new school can have access to that at no cost. And we do encourage our vendors to check the storage list before making new purchases, just being fiscally responsible. So this is a greatly monthly topic to bring up. It is my understanding that the vendors are sharing their shared vendor inventory that's in storage with you at every meeting. Please note the materials cannot cross funding sources, so materials purchased with Title I allocations remain in the Title I classroom for use by Title I students and teachers only. So if you are a school that only has Title I, you may use your vendor resources to swap Title I materials, but you will not have access to Title II materials, for example. Um, so just keeping in mind that the materials stay with the allocation that it was purchased with. And again, broken outdated materials need to be returned to MPS so we can properly dispose of them. Any questions about the ADF process? Okay, this is something that actually came about through the consultation process, and that's the ESEA vendor storage inventory, where you have access to other vendors' materials beyond your assigned vendor. And so it's been about three consultations or so ago that a request came from this group asking to access all third-party vendor storage. These inventories have been made in consultation with the non-public schools. And so basically the result that came of our collaboration based on your request was that we use a combined vendor storage inventory spreadsheet that will be accessible to all of you through your updated monthly consultations. Our department provides the vendors a link to keep that list populated. And like the regular school inventory, that list is also updated the 15th of every month. This is a vendor to vendor contact to manage the request for use of these materials on this list. We are not giving the schools permission to contact the other vendors directly. You work with your assigned vendor, and it's a vendor-vendor contact to make it happen. I have noticed in our ongoing consultation with the vendors that this service is not highly used. And so I just want to take the time to ask, has anyone used this process? And is there concerns about its organization? Just wanting to find out, you know, what would it take to have this service used more? Are you not finding things on the list? Just someone speak to me regarding this because this is a process, like I said, that was created based on a request from this group. And we want to make sure that if this is a service that you have, that you maximize the use of it. So can someone speak to me about the vendor storage inventory? Has anyone used it? Let's start there. Okay. So, and I know it's only been a couple of touches with the access here. Obviously, we have this process in place and we're going to continue making it available. But if this is not the structure to meet the need of the request, please let us know, what is needed. So again, I'm trying to give time for collaboration. If there's someone who wants to speak to this shared inventory process in the limited use that we've had of it so far. Is there anyone? Uh, just trying to see. Oh, thank you, Laura. You did say you have used it, so it worked out well for you. Is it anything that could be done better about the sharing of materials? Okay, it worked out well. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. So for those who have used it, it seems like it is a it's accessible. We'll say that it's accessible and it can be done. I would just like to see if there's a need that process is used more because again, we want to check for what we already have before we buy new materials. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I will be checking in on that periodically from consultation to consultation. Thank you, Laura. So for pre-approvals, we'll go on to the next topic, the who, the what, the where, and the when. Pre-approvals requests should connect to the needs of the teachers and students and be based on the needs assessment. All title services are supplemental. Each request must explain what is currently happening in the school. How does this request supplement what is currently happening in the school? And that again is for all titles and requesting what must be submitted on the, I'm sorry, these requests must be submitted on the most recently updated PA form. And again, you work with your vendors to access that form. And you've noticed we specifically broken out all of the questions that we need to have answered. We were noticing that when we had those questions compiled, it might seem like it's more questions, but really it's not. On the old PA form, we just had questions grouped together. Whereas now we've broken it out on the PA form to make sure none of those questions get skipped. So thank you for working with your assigned vendors to complete those thoroughly. Believe me, it helps prevent a lot of the back and forth, which takes time to process those PAs. So any questions about the updated PA form? Any comments or questions about the updated PA form? Okay, continuing on. Again, we've talked earlier, it must be submitted at least 30 days prior to the event. I do just want to add in there, if travel is required for your event, travel requires a 30-day notice itself. So you have to really, really make sure your school leaders are working, or your school team rather, is working with the vendor in a timely manner because a 30-day PA request for the event alone does not meet the travel guidelines requirement. So again, work with your vendors directly on travel. Make sure you allow yourself enough timing for both the travel request needs as well as a pre-approval time of 30 days prior to the event. Provide detailed documentation for approval. A lot of thought and time is placed into planning. We need to know everything. Even if this is something that you've already done before, present the request as if we know nothing about it. We need the plans, the calendar, schedule, everything. Work with the vendor to make sure we have all that we need to determine the allowability. Also ensure that the costs are accurate for travel and PD. And then consult with your service provider for certain travel accommodations and professional development changes. The approval is granted based on what is written. If something different happens, you risk the chance of not being reimbursed. So always discuss with your vendor when things happen. We know things are going to happen. Sometimes you might even need to just change a service date. But again, work with your vendor through that to make sure you have pre-approval before any changes are made. Your approval is based on what is written on that PA only. Again, review those travel guidelines. They have been updated. And then the vendor should be meeting with school teams, especially if they're traveling, whether it's a virtual meeting, whether it's an on-site meeting. Like there's a lot of documentation that is required. And if we don't have that invoice when the billing is submitted, if we don't have those invoices and documentations like the uh, itemized hotel bill, for example, if we don't have it, we cannot process the request. And I did mention to this group before, we are trying to prevent delayed processing of invoices. So some items we are taking out, and we'll work with that through the vendor, but we're just letting you know to make sure that you have all of the information that the vendor needs because it presses them if we say we don't have the correct documentation, we have to remove the packet from the billing consideration for that month. So from your end, just making sure you're thorough, vendors, making sure that you're meeting with the teams who are traveling before they go so they'll know exactly what they need to bring back. and that will expedite the billing process. Any questions about travel PD documentation? Okay, pre-approvals are also needed for materials given out at FE events. We know the FE catalog is already approved, but when you need materials for those events, you do need to submit a PA. We do need that PA to come to us at least 1 week prior to the event. So again, work with your vendors to make sure you submit it in a timely fashion so that you have what you need. For this pre-approvals process, once it's submitted to our office, generally speaking, the vast majority have dispositions given back as early as same day. And we've even enhanced our process with the vendors on our side to make tracking of those approvals much easier. So we do pride ourselves on the ability to get back your approvals when we can, as soon as possible. We have discussed with vendors about tracking and communicating to schools about the PAs. We want that timely service across the board, even including on the request side. So again, if the vendor is trying to connect with you, we know we all have busy schedules, but just to ensure that we can get that information out as timely as possible, please respond back as soon as possible. Once again, we are nearing the deadline for approvals for this fiscal year. It does remain April 30th for 2026. And then all non-material PAs, so that's the PD schedules and things like that. Your final request date for that is June 1st. And then those professional development experiences, however, in order to be considered and paid out with these fiscal allocations, must be completed by or before June 30th of 2026. Any questions about the PA approvals process? And these are just reminders. Again, we touch it, we introduce the process in May, we remind you when you're opening up your school year in September. These are just reminders. You have access to all of the handouts with all of the agendas and all of the links. We expect you to use these somewhat as desk references if you have questions, but these are just reminders. Any questions about these reminders? Okay, we talked about being good stewards of funds, especially regarding travel. This is taken right out of the updated travel manual. In all cases, requests for subsidized travel, including requests for virtual staff development, requires substantial justification, prior notification, approval, and documentation that will withstand any subsequent audit. All requests for reimbursement of travel expenses shall be reasonable, customary, and ordinary for the type of trip taken. The greatest possible economy shall be obtained by the avoidance of unnecessary travel and joint travel by authorized travelers in a single vehicle whenever possible. And again, that's right out of the manual, the updated manual. For a PD checklist, provide a list of required documents for reimbursement. Make sure you're looking at that before you submit your documentation to the vendor. And it's a checklist for that reason to make sure you know you cross your T's, dot your I's, everything's there. That will help prevent some of the back and forth with processing the billing. Also, only costs directly associated with permissible travel within the continental United States will be reimbursed. And this is pertaining to all titles 1, 2, 3, and 4. Any questions about that portion? Okay, obligating and travel. Schools make travel decisions on their own without getting prior approval from the ESA department. That's an example of obligating funds. Remember, all services go through the vendor. It is arranged by the vendor, it is carried out by the vendor, and it is documented by the vendor. So make sure you are working directly with your vendor. Of course, you can present ideas and have pre-conversations, if you will, just to know if the service is right for your school. But anything contractually, making agreements, that has to go through the vendor. The approval that is received is based on the information that is submitted to our office. I mentioned this earlier. Anything that happens that is different from the pre-approval, you risk the chance of not being reimbursed. If the school personnel makes a unilateral decision, then the cost will not be reimbursed. Title does not reimburse schools or private businesses directly. Always check with your vendor or our office prior to leaving or making different arrangements. At minimum, email communication during off hours is sufficient. So if you're actually in the middle of your travel and something is occurring and the offices aren't open, we need to see that the date and time on that email communication. Okay. Again, we already mentioned carpool when possible. We will only reimburse for standard room rate. Airbnb and house rentals are not allowable. Lodging expenses must be supported by an itemized hotel bill. Any questions about anything on this slide? Okay, do not use travel websites as they do not provide itemized hotel receipts. And these are things like Expedia, Travelocity, TripAdvisor. If you use those sites for your bookings, we will not be able to reimburse you. Contact your service provider when situations arise that may impact your travel prior to the start of travel. And we've had some situations where, leaders are obligated for multiple events and it might impact the travel time. So far, we have been able to work out whatever those challenges were. But again, the key is making sure we know before you leave that you are in need of some type of accommodations. Lodging will not be authorized for single-day conferences unless the distance to the conference location exceeds 50 miles. Lodging will be limited to the night immediately preceding the conference, and there will be no per diem for one-day trips. Any questions about that? All right, and rounding out the conversation regarding travel and being good stewards of funds, we do continue to allow for the tip for taxi and Ubers up to 15%. We're not saying you have to tip, but if you choose to tip, you may tip up to 15%. The explanation is still required for transfers over $25. And you work with your vendors to make sure that explanation is provided in accordance to our requirements. For illness and travel, we cannot reimburse. Like there's nothing we can do. If you plan to travel and there's commitments made and illness occurs or something happens, we cannot reimburse for services not rendered. So please be mindful of that. And again, continue to work with your vendors in advance for all challenges that may arise. Also, extra nights for canceled flights. We cannot accommodate if you need to stay an extra night, even if it's related to reasons of illness, we cannot reimburse because of unforeseen circumstances. So the key is making sure you're collaborating with your vendor to learn about and follow the updated NPS travel guidelines and procedures. Like I said, I do have the guidelines with your handouts folder. Any questions at all about travel and being good stewards of the funds? All right. Believe it or not, it's time to talk summer school. I can't believe it. So, Title I summer school can start as soon as your school year ends. Be cautious though. If you're having both a June and a July summer school offering, the charges for the July 2026 summer school will decrease your FY27 preliminary allocations. So we had that occur last summer. So I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware. June summer school is part of this year's allocations. July summer school is part of next year's allocations. You must use our form, the letter that we provide through your vendor, to notify about summer school plans, not a permission slip or school form. Please use our forms and you can access those through the vendor. The Title I summer school must operate separate from a state aid summer school or any other supplemental services that you request. And that is because those students cannot be excluded from any other opportunities that the school hosts. So remember, your summer school schedules must be separate if you're operating more than just the title summer school. Also, one field trip as part of the academic reading, language arts, or math class may be allowable during Title I summer school. And the request for that field trip and all the materials needed for that field trip should be actually written right into the summer school plan. And again, you can work with your vendors when it's time for that. We're just getting you refreshed and letting you know the time is almost near to start planning for summer school. Potential summer school sites are due to our office by 4 p.m. on March 30th. Just because you make an interest in hosting a summer school, you're not committed at this stage. So if you're interested, you want to know what all is involved, what's necessary, please have these collaborative conversations with your vendors, even beyond your monthly meeting if necessary. Reach out to them, make sure you have all your questions answered. But once we receive the school plan, which is the deadline of May 1st, then those are the summer schools that we are expected to see occur. For Title I-A summer school, it's only for students who have received Title I-A instructional services during this current 25-26 school year. And again, just as during the regular school year, Title I supplemental instruction occurs in the summer. It is still supplemental. The focus again is reading, language art, or math for both Title I and Title III. Any questions about Title I summer school? Okay, then Zizzo, why don't you take over for Title III?
Perfect, thank you. So any Title IIIA summer program must be supplemental. So that would be in addition to a regular summer school program that's being held at the same location. And participation in the Title IIIA program should not hinder participation in other summer school programs for which students qualify. And students that are English learners must be included in that general education instruction. And it's highly recommended that a push-in service delivery model is chosen. And when designing these programs, it should be focused on English language development and content attainment. And the learning experience and focus of summer school must be on language development through the domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and content attainment through any of the following: reading, language arts, and/or mathematics. And those instructional objectives of the Title IIIA summer school program should be clearly connected to the instruction provided during the traditional school year. Title IIIA summer school is open to identified English learners, and all Title IIIA teachers must hold a State of Wisconsin 395 license and be considered highly qualified in order to provide Title IIIA instruction, which means they're licensed for the developmental grade level they would be teaching. And those requests are also due on May 1st, 2026. And this is just an overview of the participation timeline for Title IIIA services for 26-27. The affirmation deadline is the same, which is March 5th, 2026. So please indicate Title III if you would like to participate in Title III services. We will offer English learner identification training. At this point of the year, it would be during, we would schedule an individual appointment. Later on in the school year, we would kind of have group offerings, and we will alert you to those dates. Access test preparation is really from August through October, so you guys can plan for that. Access testing is from December through January. And then the needs assessment would be due July 1, 2026 for schools already access testing. And the needs assessment for newly affirmed schools would be July 1, 2027, so the following year. There would be a potential allocation for those schools that access test right now, and that would be for the FY 27, the fiscal year 27, academic year 26, 27. And then for any school that would start after this testing window closes, that potential allocation would be for the FY 28 year or academic year 27, 28. So there's a distinction of when you're access testing students and when you would get a potential allocation. And again, the English learner identification process is year-round. And we ask that you complete the identification process as close to the date of student enrollment as possible. And for any schools that are interested about learning more information about what's involved in the English learner identification process, you can reach out to the Title III team before that March 5th, 2026 deadline. And we can kind of talk you through any questions you may have regarding that, the demands of identifying English learners. And some access test reminders. We do ask that you submit all documentation that could be home language surveys and screener score reports by the end of the day, Friday, January 23rd. That's this Friday. And that will allow time for verification and access rostering by the MPS team. So again, the access testing window closes next Friday, January 30th. And please return all testing materials to the DRC as soon as testing is completed. And students identified as English learners after the access window closes will participate in access testing in the following school year. And this is just a very specific reminder for the K-5 screener. So there's different actions based on how a student scores in the fall on the oral sections, which would be speaking and listening of the WIDA screener for kindergarten. So if a kindergarten student scores a 6.0 on the speaking and listening, which is the oral sections of the WIDA screener in the fall, they're considered fully English proficient, and they do not qualify for Title III services, nor do they participate in access testing. If a student scores 5.0 or 5.5 on the speaking and listening, which is the oral sections of the WIDA screener in the fall, schools will administer all 4 parts of the WIDA screener for kindergarten after April 1st. And the Title III team will send a reminder to schools regarding the kindergarten students who need to be rescreened in the spring. And if a student scores below a 5.0 on the speaking and listening, of the WIDA screener in the fall, the student is identified as an English learner and will take the access test during the December through January testing window. And after winter break, K-5 students take all 4 parts of the WIDA screener for kindergarten. Pause.
Thank you so much, Zizzo.
Sure.
Are there any questions for Zizzo or the Title III team? Okay, and again, you have this presentation attached to your email, so you can go back and highlight these dates and these reminders. Again, individual appointment if you need support with English learner identification. All right, well, we are getting close to wrapping up here. We have the vendor fair is coming up. It is scheduled for 24, 25, and 26th of February. This is on the tentative calendar that we've already provided. It will be done virtually again this year. And I will send out all of the links necessary to schedule through Sign Up Genius and Zoom. The vendor selection window is from February 18th to March 18th. Like last year, vendors will be submitting a short video about their organization and services provided along with the flyer. I'm actually getting ready to start compiling that information for you all, and I'll get that out the same as I did last year. Videos will also be sent ahead of the vendor fair. We encourage all schools to take this opportunity to meet with all vendors, even if you're not interested in selecting a new vendor. It's just nice to know what is happening with all of the services provided. And this is the only time of year that it is free to cross services, if you will, service providers to access information. So schools will have the opportunity to decide to stay with the current vendor or switch to a new vendor for the upcoming 26-27 school year. Schools can also reach out to current schools that the vendors have to discuss services with leaders who are getting those services. If you do not select a vendor, however, by the March 18, 2026 deadline, one will be assigned to you by our department. Please make your selection and please be careful with your selection that you are adding your information in the correct places on the documentation. We did have a situation where there was a slight mix up, but once we receive the information, we want to make sure that, the integrity of the process remains intact. So look at the documentation carefully, complete it and submit it before the deadline so that we don't have to assign a vendor to you. Any questions about the vendor fair? More information is going to be coming as well. Okay, for communication, please, please, please notify our department and your assigned vendor immediately regarding the following situations. If you have leadership and or staffing changes, school openings, closings, expansions, and we most recently learned about construction that may interfere with the Title I instruction offers that's offered in your building. So let us know in advance for anything that may interfere with instruction. School moves, especially if they're outside of our district boundaries, those school moves will place you in a different category and require additional allocation service. So we don't want it to be a situation where we have had in the past where new schools open and to their surprise did not have allocations for that current school year. So let us know, make sure you're working with DPI on any, whether it's school moves or opening up new buildings, especially if they're outside of the district boundaries. Interruption in planned services, I think I touched bases on that. If you're adding and or phasing out grade levels, that did come to light in our past May consultation. So we're working with the enrollment summary information that is submitted. But again, you have to let us know that this is the case for your school so we can provide attention to that need for timely service. And then finally, continue working with your assigned vendors. If additional assistance is needed, please contact our office. In that zip folder, I did also put a copy of the allowable guidelines to help you determine some of the services that your school may need to encourage your work with your assigned vendors. For communication, again, we did mention at the top of the meeting which coordinator worked with which service providers. We really are all hands on deck. And in the absence of one of our members, we just wanted to make sure you had access to connect with us. I know Zizzo mentioned reaching out to have individual meetings for English learner identification needs. You can contact her. She works very closely with Denise, who does that English learner identification process. We're here to support. Here's how you contact us. Any questions about communication and or contacting our office? Okay, so just leaving you with these upcoming dates. Rolling eligibility next Friday, a vendor selection fair that's coming up end of February. You will be receiving communications prior to that, though, to make sure we are planned and ready to go for the fair. Small consultation meeting next for just these school leaders on March 3rd. I gave you the link. You can actually register right now for that meeting. And then that way you'll already be set to go. And that's from 9 to 11 on March 3rd. And then again, FY27 affirmations are due on March 5th. Again, the website is under reconstruction. As soon as I have a working link for you, I will provide it. In the meantime, you have everything you need from this consultation, and I'll get those chat questions out to the various departments who are with us today, and we will get that information back to you within a week as a follow-up email from this meeting. Any questions? All righty then. Well, thank you for your time and attention today and collaboration. And I always like when I can give you time back. So enjoy the rest of your week as well as the rest of your year. And I'll see you for the small consultation meeting in March. Thank you.